Never Meant by American Football is arguably one of the most iconic songs of the genre, with one of the most recognisable emo riffs of the last few decades. It's gone on to inspire countless bands, scenes and albums with its signature sound, which is why it's a song that's really worth breaking down. But instead of just teaching you how to play the song, there are already plenty of videos on here that do a great job of that. I want to shine a light on some of the lesser talked about elements that make this track such a standout in the emo genre. One idea that really sets this song apart is the way it's structured from an arrangement perspective. Usually the vocal is the focal point of most pop and rock songs. Everything tends to be built around it. However, in Never Meant, the opening guitar riff arguably takes on that role instead. If I skip further into the verse, once the vocals come in, they act more like a secondary melody against that central riff. They're also mixed much lower than a typical vocal would be, and the simplicity of the melody plays in and around that main guitar part rather than overshadowing it. The panning of the guitar is also quite telling. Because it's kept centered throughout and rarely deviates from what's being played, it signals to the listener that this is the focal element of the song. Generally, the most important parts of any track are kept in the center because you want the listener to subconsciously lock onto them. Once you move something away from the center, it's a subtle cue telling the listener that it's no longer the main focus. For example, when you get to the There Will Be Some Things breakdown section, the vocals switch to a lo-fi, radio-style effect, bouncing from left to right, while that same guitar riff remains centered and consistent. The guitar arrangement is quite unique too, both in its setup and execution. It's similar to an idea I've discussed on this channel before, which I often refer to as the emo triangle. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link in the cards above. Put simply, it's the concept of using 3 separate guitar tracks in a triangle formation, one hard left, one center, and one hard right. This song approaches the idea in a similar, though slightly different way. It's made up of 2 individual guitar parts, each in a different tuning, yet still arranged in that triangle formation. You have the lead guitar tuned to FAC GCE, which stays dead center in the mix for the entire song. And then there's a rhythm guitar tuned to FCC ACF, outlining the chords using arpeggios. Neither of these parts is especially unique on its own, but when they're combined, they create that iconic sound. Another unusual aspect of the song is that it doesn't feature a bass track. They've since incorporated one into the live performances. The bass generally just follows the root notes of the arpeggiated chords during the verses, for example, but the original studio version doesn't include one at all. Because of that, those hard-panned rhythm guitars are able to take on a much boomier quality, especially when the lower string is struck. It's easy to think you're hearing a bass guitar when in reality it's not there. But because there's no bass, it leaves plenty of space in the mix for that very upfront drum sound, particularly highlighting the kick and snare, along with those boomier guitar tones. It's another great example of why you don't always need to follow the rules or stick to a conventional arrangement to create something truly special. Listening critically and breaking down some of your favourite tracks this way is a really useful exercise. It can inspire your own music, letting you use key ideas without copying them verbatim. Here's an example of something I wrote, borrowing a few ideas from the Never Meant arrangement. A big part of what makes American football, and emo in general, so distinctive is their heavy use of open tunings. These can be tricky to get your head around if you don't know where to start, which is why I made this video showing how to play in them even without any music theory knowledge.